Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, finds you well this Monday morning, March the 7th, doing kind of a quick impromptu Facebook Live here to start the day. It's very early for me to jump on here and give you an update, but given what is going on with gas prices, I figured we would do an update here. So I'm going to kind of wait here and let viewers trickle in. Good morning. Happy Monday. Well, not so happy if you're filling your tank, that is. But as more folks come in here, we will get this Facebook Live started momentarily. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them out there in the chat section. If you're a member of the media, you have permission to use this audio or video. Also, if you're a member of the media, feel free to identify yourself, your outlet, and what your question may be, and I will try to get to it here as soon as possible. But let me start from the top, kind of a situational overlook. The national average this morning at about $4.09 a gallon. We are just 1 penny away from a new all-time record high. Gas prices have absolutely exploded in the last week. The national average up 48.3 cents a gallon from a week ago. And it's likely that at some point later this morning that the national average will jump to its highest ever 7-day increase, surpassing the increase that we saw after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. That 7-day increase amounted to 49 cents a gallon. We are now at a 7-day increase of 48.3 cents a gallon. It has been absolutely staggering to watch the pace of increases. The pace of increases wasn't exactly surprising given the jump in oil prices as we watched it last week. Hopefully, many of you heeded some of the warnings that prices were going to go up. Now is the time to concentrate on what Americans can do. If there's anything, I certainly would encourage motorists to do things that may sound silly in normal times, like trying to drive more fuel efficiently, slowing down on the interstate. It's a good time to go out and check your tire pressure. The simple things are starting to make a profound impact on how many miles you'll get out of that tank of gasoline. And like I said, now with the national average at 409, Americans should be doing everything we can to reduce our consumption. When I say that, gas boycotts don't work. They shift gasoline demand from one day to another. This is when Americans need to band together to cut our fuel consumption. That is really the only thing that we can do at this moment. Supply, as we know, has been curtailed by the fact that we have seen sanctions placed on Russia. Russia is getting quite desperate. They are issuing massive discounts on their oil in order to attract buyers. That is still not having a full impact, or I should say it's not having much impact on who's buying Russian crude oil at this point. The problem is that global consumption is nearly 100 million barrels a day. The problem is that Russia is a significant producer of about 10 million barrels a day of oil production. And suddenly, with the loss of Russian oil, the balance has been significantly tipped in a way that we have never fully seen before. And so oil prices are searching now for the point where demand will start to go down. We're seeing a lot of conflicting factors pushing prices up. Make no mistake, much of what we're seeing here is because of sanctions on Russia. A lot of folks like to, make it about something else, maybe about what they've heard. But the primary driver for this is the Russia invasion of Ukraine and the corresponding sanctions that the U.S. has put on Russia. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them out. If you're a member of the media, feel free to use this audio and video or ask any questions below. I'll probably be on here for another 10 minutes, kind of running through things. Which I turn to the price of diesel. Diesel price is now $4.65 a gallon, just about 20 cents away from an all-time record high this morning for the price of diesel. And keep in mind, that's going to affect everything, from food to lumber. It is the fuel of commerce in the country. Jet fuel prices are elevated as well. Areas of Canada are seeing gas prices now approach $2 per liter. It's likely, if not possible, or I should say that the other way, it's possible, if not likely, that Canada could rise to a nationwide average of close to or above $2 a liter. In the US at this point, I do think there's the possibility that the national average will quickly jump to 425 on its way to maybe 450 a gallon. We did see a big jump overnight in oil prices. At one point, they were up $10, over $10 a barrel. This morning, oil prices have backed off some of those gains. Quickly pulling up the price of oil here this morning. At last check, WTI is basically only up $1 a barrel. So a lot of the increases have fizzled here in overnight trading. That's maybe a sign that that we could eventually see the increases in gas prices slow down. Oil at 117 a barrel, Brent crude oil at 121. Gasoline, the wholesale price of gasoline up 4 cents a gallon. Last night at one point it was up 25 cents a gallon. So there's been a lot of volatility here as we work to understand what may be going on. Of course, there's a lot going on with the White House and the discussion of putting sanctions directly on Russia's energy sector. But keep in mind, gas price increases will likely continue at least through the first part of this week. We could see them start slowing down by the end of this week. If you're in the Great Lakes, I would expect gas prices today to make a pretty big jump in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Gas prices in those areas will likely jump to $4.29 to as much as $4.49 a gallon. And keep in mind, if you're hearing me say one thing and then another, things are changing very quickly. So at this point, like I said, $4.29 to $4.49 in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. The national average is just moments, if not hours, away from breaching the all-time record high of $4.10 a gallon set back in 2008. Now, if you adjust that 2008 record for inflation, it would be the equivalent today to $5.25. So there's still some room before we really start to feel the pinch as we did in 2008. Don't see any questions just yet. No, here we go. All right, we're getting some questions come through. Blake, KLTV, where do you think will be the end of this week? Any end in sight? I'm not sure if you mean by in Texas or nationally. Where do I think we'll be by the end of this week? I think nationally we could be at $4.25 a gallon. That certainly could change. The field goalposts are constantly moving here. Overnight, oil was up $10. Like I said, now we are only up about $1 a barrel, so there's a lot of shifts happening. But I think the national average could be at $4.25 a gallon by the end of the week. Now, that's not as big of an increase as we've already seen, so things could slow down. Any end in sight? $1 million question. There may be an end in sight. We really don't know at this point what will happen, what escalation could happen next to drive oil prices up again. The president is mulling over sanctions direct on Russia. That certainly would have a profound impact. And when could this peak? Again, these are really, really tough questions to accurately answer because the situation is unfolding. We could think that this week will peak, and then next week there could be something else that completely changes the situation. So it's just really hard to give any assurances on where we're going, how high we'll get, and when we'll get there. Lori, Fox 8. I don't think, and this goes for most of the country except the West Coast. Most of the areas, the Rockies and east of the Rockies, should not and are at lower risk for some of those apocalyptic numbers like $5 and $6 a gallon. Those may happen. Obviously, California is already knee deep in the fives. California could get close to $6. Some of the areas of the West Coast could get to $5, whether that's areas like Oregon and Washington, Alaska, Hawaii. So the West Coast is really the only area that I think is at direct risk for $5. And like I said, California's already there. I don't know that even California would hit $6 a gallon yet. And I don't think many areas of the country would necessarily see that. So again, this is something that could change very quickly. But I don't see that in most areas of the country just yet. Most of this, as I mentioned, I think I used a number that 80% of what we're seeing is probably because the Russia situation. And now Now that prices have really jumped up, it may be more like 90% of the recent increase here in the last week is because of Russia, and 10% may be due to the switch over in summer gasoline. Let me be open here. The switch over to summer gasoline is having a minor impact, but the bulk of the price movements in the price of oil have been related to the Russia situation. So most of this, and I would say the summer transition is not playing as active a role. We are now starting the transition, but it is not actively pushing prices up as much as it was a couple of weeks ago when the transition started. Right now, the primary driver is really Russia. Is the rise in electric vehicles offsetting any demand, or has demand remained the same? We did see an increase, a very slight increase in gasoline demand last week compared to the week prior. There's really no evidence yet that electric vehicles are offsetting any demand at all. U.S. gasoline consumption is still in the ballpark of 9 million barrels, and that number will likely go up as we approach warmer weather. So demand has continued to grow as warmer weather starts spreading to the northern half of the country, and that's expected. We're getting into the travel season. Spring break travel is right on the cusp of hitting, and that will segue into the summer driving season. So I really don't expect demand to go down necessarily. Of course, if prices continue to escalate, we could see a change in that. Um, Lori, the best way to get the most out of your tank, highway versus city. A lot of it is simply being a little bit easier on the gas, reducing the pace of acceleration. If you're punching the gas all the time, that's obviously fuel you're burning much more inefficiently. Setting the cruise for maybe 2 to 3 to 5 miles an hour under what the speed limit is. I tried that on the way back from Tampa to Chicago. The benefits are pretty profound. I would say that by reducing your speed to 65 or so on the highway can increase your fuel efficiency by anywhere from 5 to 15, maybe even 20%, depending on the vehicle. So set that cruise lower. Avoid higher speeds than 75. That's really where the wind gobbles up a lot of that fuel energy. Um, just slow it down a bit. And in the city, try to look at the red light ahead of you. Try to coast to it instead of racing to the red light. Try and look beyond that and just slow your pace down. There's a lot of great articles on what we call hypermiling, which is basically how to increase your fuel efficiency. And like I said, I tried it myself. A lot of different methods, from slowing down on the interstate to trying looking at the red light ahead of me, and I was able to increase my fuel efficiency by about 20%. So it's certainly notable. Is the price going down in California right now? It's 709 in some stations in LA. Yeah, some stations in LA. The high price stations in Beverly Hills, where the people that live, don't really care about the price of fuel and they just go fill up at 709. We're going to continue to see some of those numbers, and LA could even see some of stations at 809. Stations do love the PR it brings, and that is not going to be representative of the entire state. LA's average now, I believe, in the low fives, about 535 a gallon at last check. Those apocalyptic 7 and 8s are going to still be uncommon, but you'll see them, and they probably will be on social media quite extensively. But they are still the diamond in the rough, the needle in the haystack, to find those prices yourself. I'm just going to quick recap here before I wrap it up. Gas price increases appear to be slowing down slightly. Now, that situation could change, but I think the biggest of increases, based on what I know at this moment, are maybe behind us. I could say likely, but oil markets are very volatile. I think the biggest weekly increases are potentially behind us for now. We're not in the clear. The situation could worsen. I do expect the national average will break the all-time record here in a matter of hours at 410 a gallon. Most areas could see gas prices go up again this week by anywhere from 5 to 25 cents. But like I said, for now, I think the biggest increases may be behind us. I would urge consumers to slow it down, to avoid going out if you don't absolutely have to. Try to cut our U.S. Consumption as a whole, and things could really improve. But for now, prices inching up, likely to set new records, but the worst may be for now behind us based on what we know at this time. So with that, with no other questions, I'm going to sign off. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. And if there's any other issues, we'll probably do another one of these down the road. Have a great Monday, everyone.